happening? Happy Friday to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is very much appreciated, especially when you take time on this Valentine's Day to check out this podcast, a Patriots podcast on your Valentine's Day. Could not think of anything better. But wait, I do have something better. Before I start talking about the Patriots, my wife, Kelly, actually went to Dunkin' this morning, and we were talking about it earlier this week about I used to love donuts, and I hadn't eaten donuts in a long time. Been forever, and people wanted me to eat a donut, especially the double chocolate donut I used to love. Well, Kelly went out this morning, and she bought me a double chocolate donut. Now, I'm not going to eat the double chocolate donut to start this podcast because, A, I just had lunch. B, I don't want to be chewing and eating throughout the show. One of my pet peeves is listening to people chew. It drives me crazy. But I'm going to meet all of you in the middle on this Valentine's Day because not only did Kelly buy me a double chocolate donut from Dunkin', she also got me a munchkin. See it? Little munchkin. So what I'm going to do is I am going to absolutely dominate this munchkin. I don't know if we still call them munchkins. Are they little donuts? I don't know. But I'm going to actually eat this right now so we can share a donut on Valentine's Day before I talk about the Patriots. So I don't know how this is going to sound. I don't know how this is going to look, but I'm going to do it because people asked me to. So here we go. Dunkin' Donuts munchkin. I will eat the double chocolate donut either tomorrow morning or Sunday morning. Little chocolate on the plate. All right. And now you see how it could be an issue if I ate an entire donut during the podcast, right? So there's the munchkin down the hatch. Absolutely awesome. I haven't tasted a donut or a munchkin in forever. It was fantastic. So thanks to Kelly. And now we can get our Patriots talk underway as I dream about the double chocolate donut for the next 24 hours or so. My goodness. My freaking goodness. All right. Free agency is less than a month away. Pro Football Focus has ranked T. Higgins number 1 overall in the free agency class. So we're less than a month away. T. Higgins, number 1 ranked free agent according to Pro Football Focus. Now, I don't agree with everything on this list. Zach Bond, for example, is not even in the top 50, which is outrageous to me. Cam Robinson is in the top 20 after giving up 12 pressures during the Minnesota playoff game this year. So that's a little bit outrageous to me. But I would absolutely say T. Higgins is at least a top 3 free agent, top 5 free agent. And it's tough to debate him not being the number 1 overall free agent this offseason. And that's why I've been saying I think he's going to hit free agency. So with that in mind, we first start with the franchise tag. I've had people ask me, Nick, why doesn't Cincinnati just franchise T. Higgins again? They can franchise him in back-to-back years. Why would you not franchise him? If you're not going to sign him, at least you can franchise him and deal him to a team. It's been my thought from the very beginning of this process that they will not franchise T. Higgins because of all the feelings that would create, the drama it would create. And so Paul Denner Jr. from The Athletic wrote about that this week in his mailbag. The question was from Michael C. Is tagging T a second time on the table? Here's what Denner wrote. I've gotten the sense neither side has interest in forcing Higgins to play on the franchise tag again. It's within the Bengals' right, of course, but I think trying to force him to do it again would cause irreparable harm to the culture and dynamics of the team. I think everyone is aware of that. It's just too much risk to me. Too much risk that if you tag T. Higgins the second time in a row, that will create drama and it will get ugly. Maybe Higgins holds out. You've got Joe Burrow, who's out there saying, pay T. Higgins what he deserves to be paid. Pay Jamar Chase what he deserves to be paid. And if you franchise Higgins, I think that would bother Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow would have something to say about that. I also think franchise tagging Higgins and giving Jamar Chase a big fat contract extension, which is likely going to put Chase at the very tippity top of the wide receiver mountain, I think that's a terrible look. And I think Jamar Chase would be upset because everybody would be talking about Chase while looking at T getting franchised for a second straight year. I don't think the franchise tag is going to be an option for Cincinnati. I think it creates too much chaos. And I think Burrow and Chase will look at it as the team kneecapping, so to speak, T. Higgins, a guy who played on the franchise tag this past season, a guy who works hard, plays hard, puts stats together, all of those things, right? I just don't think it would happen, which leads us to Jason La Canfora. Now, Jason La Canfora has a little bit of inconsistent past when it comes to reporting things. But I'm not going to pay as much attention to La Canfora reporting as I am going to pay attention to a quote that he has. Here's what La Canfora wrote in the Washington Post this week. Multiple executives I spoke with predicted Higgins will land at least $30 million per season. Here's the money quote. An NFL GM told La Canfora, quote, I think talking about Higgins, I think he's going to New England. The GM said that Robert Kraft, quote, took a lot of bleep for not spending any money, rightfully so, and I hear they really want this guy. So an NFL GM says, number one, he believes Higgins is going to the New England Patriots, and number two, he is hearing that the Patriots really want Higgins in the mix. And there's a lot of smoke, folks. There's a lot of smoke regarding Higgins and the Patriots. You go back a couple of months ago, Chad Graff from The Athletic was talking about, and I don't know if I'd say reporting, but Graff was writing about and tweeting about this idea that the Patriots were going to go after T. Higgins, and they were going to go after T. Higgins really hard. So Chad Graff was writing about this a couple of months ago. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler jumped in a couple of weeks after Graff wrote about it. Jeremy Fowler and others at ESPN have talked about the Patriots wanting to spend a lot of money on T. Higgins. And now we've got an NFL GM speaking to Jason La Canfora saying, I think he's going to New England. And from what I hear, the Patriots really want that guy. It would seem to me that the New England Patriots have T. Higgins, if not at the very top of their list, near the top of their list when it comes to free agency. That doesn't make it a guarantee. But I will guarantee you one thing. People talk. And so even though I'm not going to sit here and guarantee you Higgins is going to be a Patriot by March 10th when we find out about the legal tampering period stuff, I'm not going to guarantee that. But what I will say is people talk. And the fact that Chad Graff wrote about it, Jeremy Fowler wrote about it, others at ESPN have talked about it. This GM is telling Jason La Canfora that, yes, the Patriots really want T. Higgins, and he believes that T. Higgins will end up in New England. That's a lot of smoke. And whether it's the T. Higgins people or whether it's the Patriots, somebody is talking. And there's a clear message throughout the league that the New England Patriots want T. Higgins. They want the guy, and they are willing to pay for the guy. It could be the Patriots sending a message to T. Higgins through the media. It could be T. Higgins' agent possibly using the Patriots as leverage. That's a warning I do have for all of you. Of course, everybody in the NFL is aware that the Patriots have the most cap space in the league this year. Everybody understands that the Patriots need a wide receiver. It would make a lot of sense if T. Higgins' agent and maybe some other people are throwing the Patriots out there into the ether to try to put pressure on not only Cincinnati, but some other teams, right? You've got the Commanders with cap space. You have the Chargers with cap space. The Steelers have been dying to get a wide receiver. So this could be the team of T. Higgins trying to get the market to explode. And the way you do that is you put out the Patriots name because everybody knows that they have that huge need and that they have a ton of money to spend. So maybe if you get the Commanders or the Chargers concerned about the Patriots spending a ton of money on Higgins, maybe it'll force them to up their offer, and T. Higgins ends up going to a team that was in the playoffs this past year and gets paid the type of money that he wants. So that is a possibility, that this is actually coming from representation of T. Higgins or people close to T. Higgins to try to drive up the price using the Patriots as the leverage. I have a lot more thoughts about this, but first, let me jump to a $50 super chat from our guy, Kyle Kirk. Thank you, Kyle. Tremendously generous, giving us that $50 super chat. We got to get T. Higgins. I love the idea of Slayton, Godwin as well. Alaric Jackson, I believe, is the best option for free agency as far as tackle goes if Stanley doesn't get to free agency. Best pod on planet Earth and the moon. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the $50 super chat. Let's pick apart some pieces. T. Higgins, I'm in on T. Higgins. I'll talk about what kind of contract. If I were the Patriots, I'm going to tell you what my offer would be to T. Higgins. I have the offer on today's podcast. I'm going to tell you in a couple of minutes what my offer to T. Higgins would be. I'm totally in on T. Higgins. If you can't get T. Higgins, Chris Godwin is a great option. I was actually on Andrew Callahan's Pat's Interference podcast, the latest episode. It was released last night. You can check it out. We talked about Godwin. And I think, he is somebody that has been very productive. He's coming off of a significant injury, but he's come back from significant injury before and continued to produce. He played, of course, with Tom Brady down in Tampa, so you would imagine that Godwin would have some pretty good intel and understanding of the offense that McDaniels is going to run. Slayton's another guy. Of course, you have the link with Ryan Cowden in New York the past season. And Slayton is somebody that I could also see join the wide receiver room more as a 3 than a 1. I think Higgins and Godwin, you're looking at 1A, 1B type situation. Slayton is more a 3, maybe a 2B, but I would plan on him being a 3. Tackle spot. Yes, Alaric Jackson from the Rams is a free agent. He is one of the better tackles in the class that will be out there or should be out there. I have my eyes on Ronnie Stanley as well. The Ravens are not afraid to let guys hit free agency. They've allowed it to happen before. They allowed it to happen with Matthew Judon when Judon was seen as one of the better edge defenders in the league. They let him walk into free agency, and they let him leave and come here. So the Ravens are not afraid to let guys walk. So, yes, I have my eyes on Ronnie Stanley. If you can give Ronnie Stanley a short-term, big, fat money deal, I would be absolutely in on that. Now, as far as the best pod on earth, I'm biased, but I must agree. Thank you for the 50, Kyle. It is very much appreciated supporting the show like that. Big time on a Friday. All right. Before I get to more thoughts about T. Higgins and what I would offer if I were the Patriots, don't forget to help us out. Click that thumbs up button as you watch us on YouTube. I say it all the time. More likes means more eyeballs. That's how we attack that algorithm and take advantage of that algorithm. So don't forget to press that thumbs up and like this podcast. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Chris Chapman saying nice to Kyle for the $50 super chat. Chris Chapman also wonders, anyone think Jimmy G comes back? I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility. Not sure, though. Not sure if that'll happen. Shep in the chat talking about the quarterback class. It's not good. Look, free agency is not great. There are a lot of guys that are going to be free agents that are not necessarily awesome quarterbacks or even starting quarterbacks. You can maybe argue about Sam Darnold. The draft class as well seems to be lacking. A lot of people that I read, a lot of people that I watch, a lot of people that I listen to say that Drake May would be the number 1 quarterback in this class. J.J. McCarthy might have been the number 1 quarterback in this class. So quarterback is a weakness. So don't forget to click that thumbs up. Don't forget to throw a comment in as well. And don't forget to subscribe. We got big subscriber news. Over the last 24 hours or so, we have continued to creep towards our goal before free agency, or at least by free agency, of 6,000 subscribers. We are now like 20 subscribers away. We're under 50 subscribers away from hitting that 6,000 subscriber goal by free agency. We still have 2.5 weeks or so before we get there. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. rate and review over at Spotify, Apple Pods. If you want T. Higgins, folks, I believe if you want T. Higgins, you're going to have to pay Higgins somewhere between 30 and 35 million per year. That's what I would believe. That's what I think. It's going to cost you 30 to 35 million annually to bring in T. Higgins. You look at the contracts, and I've got a list here written down. So Brandon Ayuk is the 5th wide receiver on the list. Ayuk is 5th. He signed that deal with San Francisco, $30 million a year, $120 million total value, $76 million guaranteed in totals. Fully guaranteed is $45 million. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the 4th highest paid wide receiver, and he makes $2,500 annually more than Brandon Ayuk. Amon-Ra St. Brown signed a $120 million deal, 77 total guaranteed, 34.6 million fully guaranteed. The top 3 receivers in the NFL, A.J. Brown, number 3. He signed a $96 million deal. It was a 3-year deal, $32 million per. CeeDee Lamb is at $34 million per. Justin Jefferson is the highest paid wide receiver right now, and he is at $35 million per year. So the top 5 receivers, starting from 5 up to 1, $30 million a year, $30 million, $2,500 a year, $32 million a year, $34 million a year, $35 million a year. If you want T. Higgins, you've got to hit within that range, between $30 million and $35 million. Now, A.J. Brown, I look at that contract. The A.J. Brown contract, I believe, is your path to securing T. Higgins in a Patriots uniform. A.J. Brown signed a 3-year, $96 million contract. My offer to T. Higgins would be 3 years, $100 million. That's what my offer would be. 3 years at $100 million. Just over $33 million a year. And by giving T. Higgins $33 million a year, that would make him the 3rd highest paid receiver in football. He would be behind CeeDee Lamb. He would be behind Justin Jefferson. But he would be ahead of A.J. Brown, ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and ahead of Brandon Ayuk. Now, is that an overpay? Yeah. I think paying T. Higgins $33 million is an overpay. But guess what? Sometimes you got to overpay to get the player. We just saw that with the Red Sox and Alex Bregman. I don't think anybody would agree that Bregman's worth $40 million annually. But the Red Sox were willing to go there to secure the player. If you want T. Higgins, you've got to get uncomfortable. And so I'm going 3 years, $100 million. I'm putting T. Higgins right there in the 3rd slot for highest paid wide receivers in football. Just under Lamb and about $2 million per year less than Justin Jefferson. And don't forget, that's where the contract sits on day 1 of free agency. Washington is going to have to figure out Terry McLaurin's contract. He's going to get paid big money. Jamar Chase is going to get paid huge money. So when free agency is all said and done, and these teams extend the guys that are currently on their team, T. Higgins might end up with the 6th, 7th most expensive wide receiver contract. But I think it's worth it to get the player. Now, why would T. Higgins sign that? Almost all of the money would be guaranteed. You could give him, 65, 70 million guaranteed on that 3-year deal. And I think he would love the opportunity to make 60, 65, 70 million guaranteed on that contract. So it's a nice big fat chunk of change up front for Higgins, number 1. Number 2, Higgins would also go back to free agency at 29 years old. So the short-term deal makes sense for him because he gets back into free agency, and then he can sign another 2 or 3 big, another 2 or 3 year deal worth big money. And now overall, he's making out much better than he would have if he signed a 5 or 6 year deal for, whatever it is. If he goes out there and he signs, a Justin Jefferson deal making $35 million a year over 4 or 5 years, it's a really nice deal for him, but he can be cut after like year 2 or 3, and then go back into the market, and who knows what happens after that. You can get that big fat chunk of change right up front, short-term deal, third highest paid receiver in football annually, and then you get back into free agency at the age of 29. The Patriots, why would you do a short-term deal? Because it protects the team from having a long-term handcuff. And of course, we know T. Higgins, there are questions about T. He's had a lot of, issues staying healthy. He's had some hamstring issues. He's had some soft tissue issues. So it's not like he's guaranteed to play you 17 games a year. So a short-term deal does not handcuff you or hurt you 4, 5, 6 years down the road. That's the type of deal I would give to T. Higgins. That's my offer. Higgins, Mr. Higgins, are you taking it? 3 years, $100 million. Throw in your comments. Let me know if you'd be cool with that deal. Would you be okay with the Patriots offering a 3-year, $100 million deal to Higgins? That's the kind of contract I would offer him. He's the first option on the wide receiver market. I think he's the most talented guy on the market. He's not going to cost you draft picks. He's going to cost you only money. He just turned 26 years old, and he is a perfect fit for what you're looking for, right? He's a tall, lengthy, outside receiver. He's that X guy we've been talking about the last couple of years. The Patriots have not been able to find. So you got that outside receiver. He does have some flexibility to move inside if he wants to, if you need him to every once in a while. He's a contested catch guy. Now, I was watching Phil Perry's podcast, the Next Pats Pod, earlier today. He had Solomon Wilcots on the show. And Solomon Wilcots had a fascinating statistic about T. Higgins. 80% of T's catches resulted in either first downs or touchdowns. This is a big play guy. Big play guy. He converts third downs into first downs for you. He scores touchdowns for you. He has really good hands. Again, he can make those contested catches. He threatens defenses deep. I think T. Higgins is a perfect fit for what the Patriots are looking for. An absolutely pristine fit. And he just turned 26. And he's going to cost you just money. It's a lot of money, but he's going to cost you just money. I've got some other wide receiver thoughts here in a minute, but first, let me go to Greg, $20 super chat. Thank you, Greg. Nick, I'm guessing he's saying, are you for keeping Milton or trading him for draft picks? Greg, I would trade Joe Milton if I could get a third-round pick. If you tell me Joe Milton could get you a third-round pick, I'm trading Joe Milton. If you can get a top 75 to 100 pick for Joe Milton, I do that trade every day of the week. As much potential as he flashed against those backups again in Buffalo the last week of the season, he's already 25 years old. And, once the book comes out on him, you wonder how he's going to be able to adjust, be able to adapt. You got him in the 6th round? I mean, if you can get a third-round pick for a guy that you drafted in the 6th a year ago, doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it well. I mean, that's what I would do. You turned a 6th-round pick into a 3rd-round pick. You know that Drake May is your future at quarterback. Joe Milton's going to be your backup quarterback. So you can go out and get another backup quarterback. Give me a 3rd-round pick. That means you could walk into the draft with 5 picks in the top 100. Your 1st round, your 2nd round, your 3rd round, Atlanta's 3rd-round pick, and then a 3rd-round pick for Joe Milton. 5 picks in the top 100 in this draft, and many people will tell you the 2nd and 3rd rounds is where a lot of teams are going to be able to eat in this draft. So, yes, I would do it. I would absolutely 100% trade Joe Milton if I can get a 3rd-round pick. I would do it. I know some people disagree. We'll agree to disagree on this Valentine's Day. All right, speaking of wide receiver, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Val's all over me, says, good thing Nick won't decide this for the Pats. Oh, yeah, Val? Well, good thing you're not the Pats GM, buddy. Take that. If you can get a 3rd-round pick for him, you do it. Anonymous, thumbs up for Higgins on that deal. Chet's still drinking. Michelob Ultra, 16 ounce. Greg's a yes on those contracts. 3 years, $100 million. I would do it. Val says, why not? So Val agrees with me on the T. Higgins thing. Doesn't agree with me on the Joe Milton thing. Val, you can be my assistant GM. How about that? All right, let's get to other receiver stuff. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If not Higgins, could the Patriots somehow, some way bring in A.J. Brown? Now, I've been talking about A.J. Brown a little bit. I don't think it's probable, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to at least entertain the idea that the Patriots could find a way to acquire A.J. Brown. You know, A.J. Brown, he's having a hell of a time at the parade today in Philly. He's one-handing beers, catching them from the crowd. He just cut a promo at the podium. So he's having a great time today. But this week, interestingly enough, A.J. Brown posted this on Instagram this week. After a few days, I've had time to reflect on being a champion. I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion, and unfortunately, it was short-lived. 2 days to be exact, LOL. I never been a champion at the highest level before, but I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. It's when the DB drops his head and surrenders because he can't bleep with me. The intense battles, early mornings, late nights, sacrifices. I love putting smiles on people's faces, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what I thought it would be. It's the journey that I love the most back to work. And I found that post on Instagram pretty interesting from A.J. Brown, especially when he says, quote, my thrill for this game comes when I dominate, unquote. You can take that post a couple of different ways, but the way I took that post from Brown was that winning was great, but what really gets A.J. Brown going is dominating the game of football, being that alpha. That's what I took from it, right? My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. He didn't say my thrill for this game comes from winning. My thrill for this game comes from winning a Super Bowl. He didn't say that. He said his thrill for the game comes from him dominating the competition. You can read that a certain way, right? You can read that, I want the ball. You can read that of, hey, it was great winning a championship. I'm glad that I put some smiles on people's faces, but I want to dominate this game. I want to dominate the NFL. That's what makes me happy. That's what I want to do. That's what makes me thrilled. So you can certainly read that post on Instagram from A.J. Brown as he wants to get back to catching the football more often. He wants to be a bigger part of the offense. And when you look at this past season, yes, he won a Super Bowl, but A.J. Brown had 67 catches for 1,079 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he had 67, just over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those were his stats this year, okay? And when you look at what he did this season, it's very similar to what he did in 2021. This was his lowest productive season, the lowest production of his career since 2021. And when you look back at 2021, very similar. In 2021, A.J. Brown played 13 games. This year, he played 13 games. In 2021, A.J. Brown had 105 targets. This year, he had 97. In 2021, A.J. Brown had 63 catches. This year, he had 67 catches. So a very similar season to 2021, and that was A.J. Brown's worst year other than his rookie season in 2019 when he only caught 52 balls. So A.J. Brown sounds like he wants to get back to being that dominant force, which I would question, right? does A.J. Brown feel like he can be the dominant force he wants to be in Philadelphia? Can he be that guy with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert? Is he okay with being the third option every once in a while? Is he okay with being a part of a team that's going to run the football 35 times, 40 times, even if that led to a Super Bowl? Again, I'm going off what A.J. Brown himself posted, saying that his thrill for the game is dominating. It's not winning. It's dominating. It's beating the guy across from him, one-on-one, on an island. And so it's pretty interesting to me, right? Because maybe A.J. Brown says to himself, I won a ring. It was fantastic. But if I stay on this football team with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, because everybody's going to think about the Super Bowl. And look, Jalen Hurts was fantastic in the Super Bowl. We all know that. But ever since the bye week this past year, right? The Eagles had their bye week, week 5. They were one of the most conservative offenses in football post-bye week. I had that stat as we looked at the Super Bowl, right? I had the stat that I threw out there. The Eagles, this year's Eagles team, celebrating the parade right now, right? This year's Eagles team was the first NFL team to win a Super Bowl that had more rushing yards than passing yards, including the playoffs of the Super Bowl. First team to win a Super Bowl, more rushing than passing yards heading into that game. First team since 1975. Literally, this Eagles offense is the first offense that approached the game the way they approached the game to win a Super Bowl in almost 50 years. They were a run-first team. Now, of course, Kellen Moore went to New Orleans. How much does that change the offense? I don't know. But they were a run-first team. So a guy who loves to dominate and gets his thrill from dominating the game, is he going to be content being a part of that Philly offense moving forward? Or does he look at it and say, Saquon, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, we're going to run the football a ton? Because there's two ways that AJ can look at this thing. He can certainly look at it and say, I got my money. I got my ring. Now I want to go back-to-back. I want to be a multiple-time champion. He could certainly look at it that way. The other part of it, though, the other side of this that he could look at, he could say, I got my ring. Now I want to go and get some stats, right? Now I want to go back to dominating. I got my championship. I got my ring. Now I want to get back to dominating corners because I want to get to the Hall of Fame. If A.J. Brown's goal is to get to the Hall of Fame and he thinks he's got 3, 4, 5 years left in the league, does he want to go to a team like the Patriots where he knows he would be by far the number one target? He would be getting a ton of targets, right? He would be the number one weapon on this team. And so does A.J. Brown look at it and say, I'm going to get a lot more opportunity in New England because they don't have Devontae Smith. They don't have, Saquon Barkley. Their quarterback is not as run heavy, not as run influenced as Jalen Hurts. I can go to New England and get 10 targets a week. Not going to get that in Philly. So I don't know. I can't operate A.J. Brown's brain for all of us. Unfortunately, if I could, I would make sure he makes his way to New England and asks Philly to get him out of there. But it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds because he hasn't always been happy in Philly, as we know. So which way does A.J. Brown look at this? Does he say, I got my ring, I want another one, let's do this back-to-back? Or does he say, I got my ring, I now want to focus on me, I want to be a Hall of Famer, I want to go be an alpha for a football team, I want to be one of the reasons, the main reason that we got to a Super Bowl? Like, how does he look at it? Because if there's a chance to get A.J. Brown, I would be all in. 28 years old in June. You're going to get a guy who's going to be hungry to produce. Mike Vrabel has a great relationship with him. So you know that Vrabel has the intel on A.J. Brown. You know that A.J. Brown would come into this facility and be 100% focused on the right things. and he would change the tone of the room, right? I don't know if T. Higgins changes the tone of the wide receiver room. He upgrades it big time. But I look at A.J. Brown as that alpha wide receiver one, right? Super physical, super intimidating. He walks into the room, he's the guy. And he sets the tone. He works his tail off. That's the guy. I mean, I would imagine Mike Vrabel would be over the moon if he had any chance. If he had any chance to bring A.J. Brown into New England, I would have to imagine Vrabel would be absolutely over the moon, because he would be bringing a guy in that he trusts, that he knows really well, and he also believes that A.J. Brown is going to work his butt off, do things the right way, and be a leader in that room, aside from just going out there and dominating on Sundays. You want to give Drake May a weapon, A.J. Brown is a freaking weapon. We talk about the same things with T. Higgins, right? You could have A.J. Brown running slants every once in a while, those easy catches for first downs, and then A.J. Brown deep, contested catches. And we also know that A.J. Brown's favorite team growing up was the Patriots. We know that because he wanted to be drafted by the Patriots. So, again, do I think it's likely? I don't think it's likely. I think A.J. Brown stays in Philly. Philly tries to run it back as much as they can, and they go for back-to-back Super Bowl wins. But if A.J. Brown, again, that Instagram post, my thrill for this game comes when I dominate. If A.J. Brown is more focused on dominating the game and becoming a Hall of Famer now that he got his ring, if he's focused on that and he wants to be the number one dude and he wants the targets, he wants to go back to those Tennessee days, then I would be 100% interested. I love A.J. Brown. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Pats Pro jumps in, $5 super chat. Love the show so far, Nick. Trenches are making a comeback in a big way. Having said that, give me some A.J. Brown. Yes. Look, I don't think it's either or. You can address the trenches and you can address wide receiver. You've got $110, $120 million in cap space. You've got 4 picks in the top 77. You can address multiple things, and the Patriots need to address multiple things. You can go out and sign T. Higgins and sign Ronnie Stanley. You can go out and sign T. Higgins and draft Will Campbell. You can go out and trade for A.J. Brown and sign Ronnie Stanley. Like, you can take care of both of those avenues. You can upgrade at wide receiver. You need to upgrade at wide receiver. You can upgrade offensive line, defensive line. Now, you can't spend top money on every hole that you have. You're going to have to make sure that you're diversifying that portfolio, my man. And you're going to have to find some of the middle-class free agents to address some of the holes. But there's no reason you can't go out and get a top receiver and a top left tackle. Now, you've got to hope that Ronnie Stanley would want to come here. You've got to hope that T. Higgins would want to come here. I'm just talking about the resources. You have the resources to address multiple holes on this football team and address those needs and holes with some of the top-tier talent. Terry jumps in with a $50 super chat. Happy Friday, super chat. Happy Friday, Terry. Thank you for the generosity, the contribution. I wonder, Terry, if you would be in on T. Higgins, 3 years, $100 million. That's my offer. That's what I would offer, T. I'd be in on that. I'd also be in on A.J. Brown. Now, I'd be in on A.J. Brown if I didn't get T. Higgins. I want to be clear about that. Like, it's T. Higgins or A.J. Brown. One of those two. I'd be fine with one of those two. You're not getting both. We'll need to settle down a little bit. You're not going to get both. But thank you, Terry, for the $50 bomb, the super chat on this Friday. JC's asking me if I saw his super chat. No, I didn't, JC. Thank you. Thank you so much for pointing that out. My bad, bud. $20 super chat. Thank you, JC. If you guys get T. Higgins, there's a big chance you guys will trade down from 4. I don't know if it's related. I mean, I think even if the Patriots don't get T. Higgins, trading down from 4 is on the table, especially if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are gone by pick 4. And if you have one of the quarterbacks, what would be fascinating to me, JC, is if you have one of Hunter or Carter left, but you also have a quarterback. So it'd be very difficult to imagine that would happen. But that's a really interesting scenario, right? Like, let's say Cam Ward gets picked first. Let's say Cleveland drafts Abdul Carter. New York does something crazy and drafts like Mason Graham. It'd be fascinating to see what the Patriots would do if they had Travis Hunter on the board, Shedeur Sanders on the board. Would they trade down? Would they trade down from 4? Would they draft Travis Hunter? They're obviously not going to draft Sanders. What would they do? But I think trading down from number 4 is on the table no matter what. I think you have to keep all options on the table. And if Carter and Hunter are both gone and the Patriots don't believe that there's somebody there that's a true game changer, dropping down from 4 makes sense. Of course, it makes sense depending on how far you drop down. I don't think the Patriots are going to want to go from like 4 to like 16 or 17. But if, for example, if the Jets are interested or the Raiders are interested in Sanders and Sanders is there at 4, I could absolutely see the Patriots trade from 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 because that makes a lot of sense for them. And that's with or without T. Higgins. There's not really a Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors type player in this draft. Tet McMillan is the top-rated wide receiver, and I think Tet McMillan is more like in the 10 to 15 range in the first round. Again, thanks for pointing that out, JC. Sorry I missed the first time around, my man. So that's what I would think. I think it's still on the table. That trade down. All right, it's Valentine's Day. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by free agency. Spotify, Apple Pods, friends. Don't forget to rate and review. I've got to run. My wife Kelly and we got to get to a restaurant before it gets absolutely flooded because there's no reservations. So I'm out. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Back on Monday at 3 p.m. live Eastern right here on YouTube. I'm also on 98.5 The Sports Hub from 2 to 5 on Sunday. Talk to you soon. Appreciate every single one of you. Have a great weekend.